They have to be really careful because they keep saying Mage Tower, and I think that's setting some expectations. I don't know if they're gonna, follow through and meet those expectations, but they gotta be careful because people have been asking for Mage Tower again for ever since Legion. If they're gonna say Mage Tower, they have to deliver Mage Tower. Oh, the music. How long is this? 20 minutes, okay.
Welcome to a special edition of WoWCast, and thank you so much for joining us. Launch is right around the corner, and today we are joined by a few incredible guests to share how dungeons, raids, and PvP has evolved, as well as new features like delves and warbands. Please introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Laura Sardinia. I'm lead UX designer in the WoW team.
Hey, I'm Morgan Day, one of the associate game directors on World of Warcraft.
And I'm John Mark Hempel. I'm a lead gameplay engineer on World of Warcraft.
How has the team been approaching what's waiting for players at max level for the War Within?
As we've been talking about, the content that
this is the important stuff.
Once they reach the end game,
max level content.
Three main pillars we've been focusing on. The first is variety. We want to make sure that there's all kinds of activities for you to do, whether it be
variety streamers. Rejoice.
Some of our new features like delves that are really going to add some new variety for those players. Additionally, we really want to focus on progression and giving players new challenges to try to overcome in the end game. And finally, the story and making sure that that narrative is front and center. Now, whether that's tied into some of these features and
you guys hear
the content that we built there, or maybe it's focused on the end game campaign that is going to be built out as players progress as well. Something that I think is going to be really transformative and I'm excited about for the War Within is one of our major features, Warbands. If you aren't familiar, this is a feature that really ties all your characters together. And really this is our opportunity to make sure that we're really respecting the time of the player behind the keyboard and not constantly asking you to, maybe re-earn something on one character that you've already earned on another one. That's all changing with the War Within, which is really exciting.
John Mark, can you tell us more about the significant undertakings that Warbands is about?
Yeah, it's no easy task to reimagine in a modern context what we've done over the past 20 years. I think, Morgan, at BlizzCon, you called this several features in a trench coat. Yeah. And it's very true. In a nutshell, it's really a philosophical shift in how we approach the game. Instead of being from a character focus, we're taking a...
I feel like warbands are going to be, it's going to be one of those features that you kind of just forget exists in enough time. Like, it's just going to be so natural and ingrained into how the game works that you're not going to think of it as, this new feature called Warbands. It's just going to be how the game functions, how you play your characters. It'll be funny to look back on this in like a year and see how much of an emphasis they put on this as being this brand new feature, like the selling point of the game. And as they should be, but it's funny that it's going to be such a natural thing. Usually these expansion feature points are like things that come and go.
A step back and approaching it more from what the players accomplished over the entire time that they've played the game.
Yeah, it's account-wide everything.
We've added on pieces to individual systems from the engineering side to support features going into expansions. But if we could wave a magic wand and go back 20 years ago, knowing where we're headed today, likely we would have organized those things very differently from an engineering perspective.
Yeah, and I really feel like this is easily one of the largest undertakings that our engineering team has had to develop for an expansion. We always used to look at updates to future patches where like,
I love
let's
that
make
they
this
included
a little bit easier for
new
alt
music
to
in the
catch up
background
or earn some progression there, where now that is something that we're really architecting from the forefront and really beginning the conversation with that.
I think when it's all said and done, every engineering sub-team is going to have touched this feature.
So what value do warbands bring?
It's all about being able to transfer stuff between your characters. If you have items that you want to send from one character to the other, you just put it in the warband bank. If you have currency that you want to send from one character to the other, you can just grab it directly from all the characters that are on your account. Or if you're a druid and you're going through one of the old raids and you get a piece of plate gear, your warrior can just equip it.
Yeah, one of the things I love about it is the shared renown, right? Like there's so much reputation that I'm gaining across my characters that will all be combined and consolidated on one account-wide reputation there. And there's a lot of fun stuff that also enables when it comes to like trying to find, you know, more variety in the way I approach the game. For instance, I was leveling, I think, my second character on the beta recently, and I made sure to go out and turn Warband questing on.
I think because all of this stuff is going to be account-wide now and shared between all your characters, we're probably going to get more of them. So I think usually Blizzard intends to keep us occupied by like having to grind those reps on multiple characters. But now if it's all shared across the account, we'll probably get more of them to do to keep us occupied. Because if you think about it, we didn't really get that many in Dragonflight. We had the original ones that came at the start of Dragonflight. I think there was like 4, like one for each zone. Then we got the one down in the whatever the fuck, Zeralek Caverns. We got that one, the Niffin. And that was pretty much it, right? In terms of renown. I think we might get more, like at least one for each extra zone that we get. Hopefully we get at least one sort of track of renown. Dream Wardens too, yeah. And I think they learned a lot from Dream Wardens because of the whole controversy that was sparked up at the start of that, where people were exploiting with the seeds and all that stuff. None of that will be necessary anymore. You won't have to make a human alt to get the rep bonus. You won't have to do it on an alt first to get the bonus for your main. None of that stuff applies anymore. So I would like to see more of that though, because I feel like there were opportunities for us to get a few more renown rep things and we didn't. We got them in this weird form of like think of the rep for the invasions. The time rifts. It wasn't quite a renown. It was like this weird half rep that you got with Soradormi. I think that could have been an entire renown track with rewards along the way. I don't know why they didn't do it that way.
So that I saw all the quests that I already completed. It's a little bit less opaque, so it's kind of transparent. And that way you know, like, okay, I've done that quest on one of my other characters. So I can kind of cherry pick all the reputation from quests that I haven't
Yeah, this is really cool.
Yet.
It tells you if you've already done this quest before on another character in your warband, so you don't feel like you have to go and do it. I really like this.
Something else when it comes to, maybe gearing that new character, there's actually a new type of item called Warbound Until Equipped, or WOO. This is a new item that will drop in all kinds of endgame content, including things like Mythic Plus and Raids, where these will be bonus drops, where they'll drop a slightly lower item level where you might have earned that reward, and then you can put that in your bank or send it to one of your alts, and actually once you equip it on one of your characters, then it will bind to that character. So the fact that it binds to the warband means we can be really generous with that gear as we're dropping for alts.
I imagine as part of this overhaul that it's led to some unique challenges with the UI.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. UI revamp continues, and Warbands was a great opportunity for us to revamp the character select. Last time we did a big entry screen update was during Shadowlands. So with Warbands, we did a whole big user experience revamp there. We kept the right side list, but now you can drag and drop much easier your characters, and we have a favorite section there, which is really cool because they're all cross-helm characters that you can have. So you don't need to be back and forth choosing characters.
Yeah,
they're all going to be.
This threw me for a loop at first. I didn't realize that all of your characters across all your servers are on one list. I didn't realize that on the alpha because we only had the one server. But if you go to your character screen now, if you're the type of player that has multiple characters across all servers, you'll have a list of a ton of characters that, if you're like me, they all have the same name. You have lots of Jediths. Yeah, 5 Scenaries.
Characters that you can have, so you don't need to be back and forth choosing characters. They're all going to be there for you, very, very easy. And also the tooltips are all new. So now you just mouse over and it's all there for you. So pretty great improvements overall. And also the new bank for your Warband characters. So a lot of good improvements that we wanted to make sure it feels natural to players and it just feels great. That's what a good UI should be, you know? So yeah, that's what we're looking for.
There's a lot of functionality out of that too. Like you can craft straight out of your Warband bank. So you can just dump all that stuff in Warband bank, and you know, one of your other characters who might be able to use that profession stuff will then be able to access it much more quickly. You don't have to mail it around, and you know, it's really looking to streamline a lot of those experiences.
For our Mythic Plus runners or dungeons, any kind of activity that requires a group, we also revamped that left panel, the little ear pane that you push it out. You can now apply raid markers much easier. You can also assign different folks in your group to do so, which before wasn't that easy.
Nice.
And also you can change very easily as well the difficulty of the instant.
One of the other things I love that we added is hubs.
I didn't know you could change the difficulty from that.
There's often, as you are progressing in the end game, there's all kinds of content that might be
really
consolidated in one area, and sometimes it's like, oh, there's so much stuff here, and it makes the map feel like it might have a little bit of clutter on it. So we now have a way to kind of consolidate some of that.
The hubs, as Morgan was explaining, when you get in the War Within, you're gonna see this castle city icon that we're gonna have in each zone. And Dornagal is the biggest one. When you click on it, you can see the city map. And one of the technologies that we wanna add, the hub gonna prioritize for you what is the most important content for you to do. Of course, you can choose to do something else, but we wanna clean up the surroundings of hubs in main cities. So that's the kind of tech that we're looking into UI as well, and we want to evolve and get players' feedback. Also for the end game, we have a new type of quest that's called meta quests, but those are end game important repeatable quests, and then they are the classic exclamation mark, you know, above the NPC heads, but it's blue because it reminds of the old dailies, but you're gonna have spikes around it, so you know that's like, oh, I should check this out.
Endgame.
Yeah. So the hub when there's something available as a meta quest for that week, the hub will show that to players, so you know that's something that you should do. If you don't have too much time, you probably should prioritize those because they give very good end-game rewards. So that's the kind of technology that UI is trying to help players.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
You might be coming back, or you're veteran players, or you just want to, you know, do the easiest thing for the week, and that's gonna be all there on the map for you, so you don't have to go back to the icon soup.
Are there any extra quality of life improvements to the UI?
Sure, I've seen a lot of the community very happy about the search bars. So we keep adding those. With Warbands, we have a search bar there as well. In Dragonflight, we had the search in the options menu. Professions, of course, if you're searching for something specific. Bags, we added that in Dragonflight, and the talents. But now, the spellbook is getting a whole revamp, and it's so good to have a search bar there.
What do you guys think of the new spellbook? What do you guys think
book is getting a whole
of this? You guys like it? I haven't heard, it's a book. It's info overload. It's too big. It's nice, very big though. I've only heard people say they don't like it. I haven't heard anyone say they love it. I think one of the main problems, let me just demonstrate this, is that when you do open it, it's fucking massive. And even if you sort of minimize it to only show one page, it still takes up an entire half of your screen. When you fully maximize it, it's your entire screen. Yeah, I think it's too big. It's way too big.
That's what she said.
Like, there's got to be an add-on or something that you can get to shrink it, right? There definitely is. There has to be. Yeah, I've only heard people say that they don't like it. Which is kind of funny, because it's such like a talked about feature that Blizzard just keeps pushing and showing, and they're like, this is our brand new redesigned spellbook, isn't it great? And everyone's like, yeah, we love it, thank you. They don't love it.
Revamp, and it's so good to have a search bar there. The spellbook looks beautiful now, like you can have 2 pages, and that way you don't have to paginate as much. But if you really prefer one pane, there is an icon at the top, which is the collapse one. It comes back to the original classic size. So we know some players really love that, and we want to make sure that everyone is happy with the new spellbook. Having the time to do all that stuff makes us so happy, because we want to keep the classic WoW look, even though it looks modern, but it still feel WoW, and that's really important for us.
Morgan, earlier you mentioned you want to empower players to play the way they want to play. How is that going to be approached in the new feature Delves?
Yeah, so, like we've discussed, Delves are really bite-sized content, really targeted on those players who love progression in the outdoor world and maybe aren't so excited about going into group content or queued content. Something that they gave us feedback on is that they really wish that there was a way for these to be a bit more difficult and maybe give them a bit of a challenge.
Sorry, just going to pause this for a second. You know what they need to do? Hold on. I think I still have this add-on. Let me just turn it on. Talent tree tweaks. They need to make this. Yeah, this is what Big Hero was just talking about in the chat. They need to add a transparency option. If they had this for the spellbook, that wouldn't bother me as much, because you can still kind of see what's happening behind it. Like, yeah, it's still big and it kind of looks ugly, but at least you can see what's happening behind it. But like this, way too big. Add-on name, this is Talent Tree Tweaks. And then you can also do this. You can scroll to make it smaller or bigger. Simple solutions to simple problems. Anyways.
Delves, while the rewards might end at tier 8, so that the item level that you're getting stops there, the difficulty tier goes to 11. And when you reach that difficulty, there will be a hard mode version of Zekfir, which for people who might be familiar with some of those solo challenges like the Mage Tower of the past, this will be a new solo challenge for players.
They have to be really careful because they keep saying Mage Tower, and I think that's setting some expectations. I don't know if they're gonna follow through and meet those expectations, but they got to be careful, because people have been asking for Mage Tower again for fucking ever, since Legion. If they're gonna say Mage Tower, they have to deliver Mage Tower. Because if you go in there and it's boring as hell and not that hard, I know they've said that they've tested it internally and the devs can't complete it. It's that hard, but like, that's just what they say. We don't know until we actually get in there and play it ourselves. They need to deliver Mage Tower. If they're going to keep saying Mage Tower,
to really, try to tackle
might be
over
setting
time.
themselves
We
up.
imagine this is something that will take quite a bit of effort and, progression to get to the point where you'll be able to defeat Zekfir at that difficulty. And waiting for you, if you're able to do that, is a really awesome, unique, kind of voided out version
so
of
this
that
is the reward you get.
customizable delve mount.
This is the reward you get for completing the Mage Tower. What do you guys think? It's great, right? It's amazing.
That you're going to be rewarded with very early on in your delve progression.
Can you talk about the different varieties of delves?
Yeah, so with delves, there's 13 delves in total, and something that we really wanted to focus on was to make sure that each delve...
Well, here's just to clarify on that. So this mount you get naturally throughout the expansion, right? Like this is your customizable mount that you get. Completing the Mage Tower just gives you the void sort of skin for it. So you get this naturally. This is your dirigible that you unlock at the start of the expansion. And you unlock different pieces, parts of it, skins for it by doing different things through quests, the campaign, achievements, dungeons, whatever. But completing the Mage Tower thing gives you the void kind of overlay to it. And I mean, it's cool, but does it live up to what a reward from something like that should be? I personally don't think so. If you think about what those rewards were from the Mage Tower, how epic they were, they really made you feel like it was sort of a prestige reward that you got for completing hard content. I don't know if this really gives the same vibe. I know there is a title attached to it as well, but titles nowadays, most people don't even use a title. Or they use an add-on to block other people's titles. So, I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just being picky.
Sizable delve mount that you're going to be rewarded with very early on in your delve progression.
Can you talk about the different varieties of delves?
Yeah, so with delves, there's 13 delves in total, and something that we really wanted to focus on was to make sure that each delve had multiple variants, right? So while there's 12 delves that you'll experience and be sent to, you know, a couple in each zone, every time you zone in, we wanted to make sure that, you know, it wasn't just some small tweaks here and there, like, oh, the spawning changed a little bit, or maybe there's some traps that look a little bit different. The actual objectives are changing. Sometimes the way you traverse through the delve completely changes. Maybe you're gonna start at the end of the delve this time and work your way backwards. So we wanted to make sure that these different variants were really distinct with each new delve. And we also wanted to make sure that, like I said earlier, with progression to be a large part of this. So there's a couple different aspects of that. For one, the Great Vault, which is something that a lot of our raid and PvP and Mythic Plus players are familiar with, is going to get an
I like the new vaults
with the War
window.
Within. So
that looks really good.
That comes from delves. We wanted to make sure that while it was bite-sized content, that doesn't mean it can't be really rewarding, right? So if you're able to work your way up and defeat level 8, which is where the loot kind of caps out at, your Great Vault will actually reward you with items that are higher item level than you would get out of like a Mythic plus 10 end of run chest. So it's really, really good loot.
Yeah, it's really
and
rewarding.
We want to make sure that you're using that gear that you're in along the way to work through the different delve tiers and finally take the fight to Zekvir and by extension Xalatath as well, which also gets us into feeling like delves should be a big part of our endgame story as well, and making sure that they're paying into this narrative of Xalatath and all of our
just keep in mind, a plus 10 is what a plus 20 used to be.
Something else that we added in the UI for delves is, there's now a whole tab that exists for delves that will exist down with the adventure journal, where you can see Mythic Plus and see your seasonal journey there. Now when you go to the delves tab, you can find the Great Vault from there. You can also see Bran, who's your companion. You can change his spec and see kind of the progression there. So lots of fun UI additions and improvements.
Bran's a piece of shit, dude.
That much more fun.
The team has also made significant changes to the...
If you guys did any delves on the beta, you would know how shit Bran is. Like, no matter what relics you give him, no matter what role you give him, he just gets in the way. He just gets in the way. He stands on top of things you're trying to click on. He'll like... I don't even know what he does half the time. He'll disappear. He'll get stuck in a rock. He'll go for a swim. He'll take a nap.
That have made delves that much more fun.
The team has also made significant changes to the Mythic Plus dungeons. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, so actually, not only is Mythic Plus getting some changes, but also the core progression of dungeons is shifted quite a bit. So if you've been playing Dragonflight Season 4, you might have seen that Mythic 0 has actually gotten quite the facelift. Something that we have noticed in the past is Mythic 0 was great for like 2 weeks of an expansion, and then nobody really needed to do it anymore because they had just progressed into Mythic Plus. So with the War Within, a Mythic 0 will be the equivalent of what, if you haven't played since Shadowlands, a Mythic 10 might have been. So it's quite difficult.
A 10 is what a 20 used to be.
Equally as rewarding, but we wanted to capture that audience of people who loved that feeling of the mega dungeons where, there's still progression, but also there's no timer, right? So if that was something that maybe put you off from Mythic Plus, this is something that you can still do with your friends. And hey, you can run AFK if you need to in the middle of these. But for Mythic Plus itself, we really took a huge step back and wanted to do a major affix refresh. We have gone through multiple iterations of that on the beta. You know, we got a lot of feedback from our first iteration of it and have really pivoted significantly since then.
It was kind of neat because we had some players that said, we really like the direction of these affixes, these I don't know about, and then other players that felt the exact opposite. I'm not sure about these, but I really like this direction. And really what it helped us crystallize was we had multiple groups of players that wanted different challenges out of the same Mythic Plus system. Historically, affixes have been a one-size-fits-all approach to challenge and variety. But it was kind of a cool moment. Morgan came to the gameplay engineering team and was like, hey, we got this feedback. We have this idea for making
tough problem to try to solve.
Different level ranges rather than applying to the entirety of Mythic Plus. And the design solution ended up being pretty elegant for engineering to implement. It was like this beautiful confluence of events where we were able to turn this around within, I don't know, 2 weeks or something like that, and get the full revamped system back on the beta for players to test.
Yeah, it was really awesome to see kind of that all come together so quickly. So, you know, what players I've seen now and what will be going
Max is going to be mad because he has an interview scheduled with Morgan in a few days, and he's probably answering a bunch of his planned questions. I guarantee you, in that interview, Morgan is going to drop some unexpected announcement. Guarantee you. It'll either be, you know, Drakthir can be new classes or something else we just didn't expect. There's going to be something. It would be the perfect time for them to do it right before the expansion, you know, rile up some hype, get people excited. Player housing, I think that's a bit much. I think that would be a little bit too much.
Live with The War Within Season 1 is a version where Xalatath actually plays a major role in the affixes, you know, from the beginning up until level 12. And it's very much one of the goals we had to make sure that the story plays a part in all of our endgame content. So we really wanted to kind of achieve that by having her kind of show up in your Mythic Plus dungeon and maybe throw some spells at you and mess with you.
You know, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft this year, and if you're coming back from a break or if you're a completely new player, just learning the dungeons can be daunting on top of affixes and things like that. So this sort of granular way that affixes apply challenges to the dungeons allows players to engage with them in the way that they want to be challenged.
Something that we added in Dragonflight, which is the follower dungeons, are great for that because you can have NPC companions,
These
which
are
are
so
not
good.
real players, playing with you through the dungeon. And let's say you just changed to a new spec, you want to be a healer now, and I really want to try that first before really going to a dungeon with new players.
You guys can do these on live right now. If you open up your thing, go to Dungeon Finder, and go to Follower Dungeons, you can queue for any of the Dragonflight dungeons with an AI team. Now it is normal, you know, normal difficulty of the dungeon. So if you're going in on your main, you'll probably just be able to solo the whole thing. But if you make a new alt, it's a really good place to learn how to play your class. So I highly recommend you guys check that out. And, you know, it's going to be possible to do in The War Within too. Very cool feature.
We know that players in dungeons often are afraid of trying out new specs. And with hero talents, there's different flavors of new combat for people to try out. And follower dungeons provide a way for you to just go in and feel it out and not be too concerned about how you're impacting other people.
Approachability has been mentioned a few times. How are we applying that to PvP?
Yeah, there's actually a new feature that I am personally going to play quite a bit, where you're going to be able to experience essentially rated battlegrounds. It's called Rated Battleground Blitz, which is a smaller number of players, and you'll be able to earn conquest and, you know, all the awesome rated PvP rewards while playing battlegrounds.
Rated Battleground
we know
Blitz.
There's a ton of people who love battlegrounds, but you know, the jump into arenas sometimes might be a little bit scary. That is a much more smaller experience, and you know, each little mistake counts for a lot when you're in an arena. Where in a battleground, you know, there's a lot more going on. Usually they last longer.
Yeah,
there's
solo
objectives.
shuffle for battlegrounds,
So
right?
we really are excited about that.
TLDR,
new feature.
that's what it
I know
is.
I have done a ton of, I know the community calls
Imagine
them
the
YOLO
toxicity
RBGs, where you can just do RBGs
in
and don't worry
solo
about voice
shuffle
chat. You just kind of go in
battlegrounds.
and play. I always love running into those.
Oh,
So
no.
having this feature will kind of take that place for me. So I'll be able to earn my conquest early on in the season. You know, I know we mentioned the Great Vault quite a bit earlier when we were discussing this. We actually got a lot of feedback from our PvP players that they don't love having to have the Great Vault be such a big part of their itemization and gearing journey. Not only does it add some potential randomization, right? Like maybe first week of the season you got a weapon and I don't, and that, you know, kind of can create some imbalance there. But also, like we're talking about accessibility, it can also cause problems where, you know, maybe you're a couple weeks into the season and you just now want to get into PvP, but there's no catch up on the Great Vault. So you can feel like you're permanently behind on PvP, and it's maybe the barrier to entry is a little too high for you to get into that. So not having that in the Great Vault actually solves a lot of problems for us, giving players more agency in how they're rewarded, and also we have much stronger catch-up on things like our conquest currency for PvP players. So we think that will be a big step forward for that audience, and hopefully, you know, inspire some people to check out PvP in the War Within.
Raiding is an integral part of endgame.
Might do some more PvP.
How is the team approaching raids this tier?
Yeah, so Nerebar Palace is going to be an epic experience. You know, Nerubians galore in there. And one of the cool new features that we're introducing with War Within is to play through the raid, or at least experience the ending with Queen Ansarak solo. So we wanted to make sure that for people who were really engaged in that story at the ending, but maybe didn't want to go into queued content or don't have a whole group to.
Is this the first time we're seeing her boss room? I think it is. I don't think we've ever seen her boss room.
With Queen Ansarak solo. So we wanted to make sure that
for
people who were really engaged in that story at the end game, but maybe didn't want to go into queued content or don't have a whole group to go into the raid with, they'll still be able to see that epic finale. Something else that I think is really fun, there's a lot of variety in player skill across all of our player types in the game, and we have a lot of difficulties for them. But even within a single raid, there can be a lot of, you know, progression that you're experiencing. And with Dragonflight, we added a new item upgrade system where you could upgrade some of your gear. But some players also found that they might not be able to quite get over that hurdle on one of the, maybe the end boss or something that comes as the penultimate boss. So we're adding a new quest that will unlock about a month into the War
really
Within,
nice.
that every week you'll get a little bit more powerful. It's kind of reminiscent of like Hellscream's war song back in Icecrown Citadel, but you'll have to kind of earn your way through that progression.
I wonder if this will mean that we'll see less nerfs. I wonder if this means we'll see less raid nerfs over the course of the season. If they're just going to let this buff sort of deal with that stuff for them. Unless there's something like, you know, really obviously broken with a boss. But I think maybe in terms of tuning, they'll have to touch the encounters less and just kind of let this stacking buff over the weeks take care of it. Hopefully. I'm sure that's what the intention is, but we'll have to see.
Is there awesome gear to be earned as you progress through the raid? But we wanted to make sure that for people who might take a little bit longer, there's some more progression along with just the gear.
That buff's applied throughout your warband, right? It's not just on the character.
Yeah, that's another really fun thing.
It's on your entire account.
That was something that maybe would have just been applied to a single character, but...
Which is interesting because wouldn't certain players in like a pug raid potentially have a higher buff than the other ones? Because I don't think it's just an aura applied to the whole raid every week. I think you have to like do something. You have to participate in the raid to get the next step up. So you might get into a pug group and one of your players has a triple the size buff as somebody else.
In War Within, that buff is across my whole warbands.
That's cool.
While we are talking about raids, I would love to bring it up, the self-highlight option, which I'm a huge fan. You can highlight yourself and persist that. But now you can even have an
I was going to make this
icon on
into
your
a video.
head that nobody can take from you. So that is awesome. You know, for players, I'm included, that I cannot find myself in the whole chaos of a raid boss or even Mythic Plus. There's also another option that's called Show Silhouette When Obscured. If you have that on, there is a silhouette of your character between that pillar. Let's say it's a pillar, so you see your character there.
I always call this like the flag boss or the tree boss, where it's like, oh, the flag is in my camera. That's really cool, Laura. And
huge change.
I love that, and you know, not only those cool options, but there's so much more to explore in the War Within, and I'm really excited for our players to come on this journey with us. Both players who have been with us all through Dragonflight, as well as players who might be returning.
thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this look into endgame content, and we look forward to seeing you in Khazalgar.
Nice. Cool video.